I was in a mission one time and she broke her canine pulling me out from under rubble. So if you want to know a hero, she's mine.
We gave a lot, and we're not asking much. We're just asking for help and making sure that we take care of our own.
Why do we have to fight again to get the things that we need?
Once I got out, everything was like, facing towards the deep, dark pit of like alcohol addiction, and that's exactly where I went.
You went from an extraordinarily close support system and brotherhood and sisterhood to nothing.
Veterans and military families are extremely resilient. They don't need a handout, but what they do need is a community that knows how to embrace them.
We did 7 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan together. She was an IED, C4 explosive ordnance. What we did is a lot of times we would go out in areas and track IEDs to make sure the convoys were safe. We're actually retired now together.
Tell me a little bit about what life has been like since you left the military.
Hell. Because things that we do over there to keep our country safe, a regular American doesn't see that. When you're looking down at the end of a barrel, you don't know what's on the other side. All you hear is these bees flying at you, but they're not bees, they're bullets. And, we relive those moments all the time. I wake up with night terrors all the time of some of the missions and things that we did together.
The 82nd Airborne 2nd Brigade, which I was a part of, was on what's called the Global Reaction Force. And that's where one element of the conventional Army is on a specialized task force that the President of the United States can call at any moment. And within 72 hours, they have to be deployed. It was the end of 2006, December. Christmas had just passed, and our Global Reaction Force got activated. President Bush activated us to go to Baghdad, Iraq. Saddam Hussein was about to be hung within the next following month. The Shia and Sunni factions were heating up against each other. There was a lot of unrest. And it was the president's plan that the Global Reaction Force go sort of as a peacekeeping force for about 2 months. When we got there, everything but that happened. All hell broke loose.
Started out in the Marine Corps as a second lieutenant in 1974, NROTC scholarship graduate. And my first duty assignment was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which began my 39-year career. 25 years of those in all my major commands was at Camp Lejeune, from platoon commander to division commander at Camp Lejeune. My connection with North Carolina has been through the military service, and I've launched all around the world coming out of Lejeune, and I've had some very interesting jobs from working both in Asia and Korea, Japan, Australia, to the working in NATO, where I spent a majority of my career working in NATO, rising to the position of Deputy Chairman, Military Committee of NATO. That was my last assignment prior to retirement.
The Sunni and Shia, they were fighting each other, and then they were also fighting us. There was tribal factions going on. If you weren't from this tribe or that tribe, they were fighting. Their conventional army of the Iraqis was fighting their conventional police force. And then foreign fighter jihadists heard that the American demons were coming, and they entered into holy war to fight against us. So literally, bullets were flying in all directions. And what was intended to be a 2-month peacekeeping course, our tour of duty, turned out to be 15 months of hell.
My name is Daniel Nicholson. I'm with Anchor Baptist Church, and we're humbled, truly, to have all of y'all here. It was just a couple years ago that I was in the same steps.
In the military, I was a missile launcher, tow missile launcher, and over in Iraq, I mainly dealt with the Humvee and driving it around. I served from 05 to 09, and when I got into the Marine Corps Fleet, I was attached to the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marine Corps Regiment Weapons Company, Mobile Assault Platoon number 5. We were traveling south in the Al Anbar region of Iraq, and a roadside bomb struck my truck, and I became incapacitated. Recovery was on again and off again, and still to some effects. Even today, we still have some things that we deal with.
The hardest part about that was?
Next. The hardest part about it would definitely be making sure that I'm understood, to me personally. The transition went well, but thankfully I had a lot of help in place from this church here to my family. They were all a huge help in my transitioning out of the military.
Originally from Hartford, Connecticut, and I'm now here in Button, North Carolina. I was 68 Gulf, patient administration, did that for about 12 years, and I was medically separated. My days are primarily school. I'm currently in school. I wake up, I attend the morning meetings, and I go to school. Being here at the VLC, I have the opportunity to really make life what I want it to be for me, and making coming up with a plan and making the decision to do something and seeing it through.
I was an MP at Leavenworth, and I also was a combat veteran in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. I got here, North Carolina, by accident, actually. I was suffering really bad from some PTSD and substance abuse, and I used my last tank of gas and just started driving, nowhere to go, and ran out of gas in Raleigh, North Carolina, right next to a VA clinic, actually. Walked inside, asked for some help. I said, hey, new to the area, just looking to see if I can talk to somebody. And they said, sir, you're registered in Providence, Rhode Island for VA healthcare. You're gonna have to register in Durham. So I didn't let them know what was going on with me or what my situation was. I just kind of walked back to my car, mulled it over for a little bit, and I said, what else do I got to do? So I packed my bag and I walked about 30 miles, took me 16 hours to Durham. So I walked inside the VA and I let them know that I was just struggling. And they found this place and told me about this place. So I'm here.
I was in the Air Force for 10 years. I joined right out of high school. I went in at 18, was not huge into school, so I was trying to find anything that I could do that did not involve that. It was an awesome experience. Probably one of the most proud roles that I've ever been in. Had my son while I was in, met my husband while I was in. His name was Joseph, but everybody called him by his middle name, which was Shane. He was in for 20 years and never turned down anything. And you know, we've kind of taught our kids to be that way because he got to experience so much because of that, and go different places and, you know, just experience what the military was really all about. And he was, you know, an amazing man. He, you know, adopted my son, and was an awesome dad to him. He was medically discharged at 20 years, and we moved back here to be closer to his family. So at that point, I was not only a veteran, I had been active duty, my husband had been active duty, and then he was diagnosed with a brain tumor while he was in. I then became a caregiver, and now I am not only a veteran, but I'm also a widow.
I grew up here. After I finished Western Carolina University, I went into the Marine Corps and was commissioned out of Quantico in 1972 and stayed in for almost 4 years of active duty. I was an infantry officer. And then it came time to get out. I decided to get out and join the Marine Corps Reserve and stayed in reserve for 26 years and held a number of command jobs throughout. In the Marine Corps Reserve, there's not that many reserve units, so you have to travel a lot. I was commanding officer in Tennessee, Greenville, South Carolina, and just a lot of time back at Camp Lejeune. And my last tour of duty, I was on a 2-star Navy Admiral staff. I was his one Marine out of Jacksonville, Florida, NAS Jacksonville. So had almost 30 years total, retired as a full colonel, and very proud of the service I had and the opportunities to see a lot of the world.
I first went in the military in 1971, which was, of course, you know, during the time of the Vietnam War was still going strong. And when I first went in the military, I was fresh out of high school. And I went in the military, I was 18 years of age. And I went into the Air Force. And of course, you know, the draft was still going. And while I was in basic training, my draft letter came to the house. So I was a couple weeks ahead of the draft. But after that, you know, I did 4 years in the Air Force. I got out, went to college, did 4 years there, received my BA degree. After that, I finished, I think I was out of college about 2 years. And then I joined the North Carolina Army National Guard, wherein that I spent another 26 years there with the North Carolina Army National Guard.
We took over what Saddam Hussein used for his rich elite as a shopping mall, and we turned it into a combat outpost, literally with guns blazing. And during our time there, we had 35 of our guys killed and 110 Purple Hearts. And when I say Purple Hearts, I'm not talking about slight wounds. I'm talking about 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, missing arms, legs, blind, paralyzed, PTSD beyond imagination. And as far as the ones that died, and many of the ones that were severely injured, I was there as the chaplain and the last in their ear before they met their maker. For me, it was a difficult time, most difficult time of my life. About halfway into that deployment as a chaplain, honestly, I started feeling very depressed. I felt like the angel of death. Every time there was a tragedy, the chaplain would be called, and every time the soldiers saw me, they thought, oh no, here's bad news, here comes the chaplain. And I was the only caregiver in that group. They had a roving behavior health team that would come once a quarter. But other than that, with those 1,500 soldiers, I was it.
I served in Company L Marine Support Battalion, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, pre-torture days, and then 1st Radio Battalion, Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station. So my field, I was Special Intelligence Telecommunications. I worked the crypto gear. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I was picked up by the Department of State Foreign Service Diplomatic Corps. So my first posting was in Libreville, Gabon, West Africa, right there on the coast. And then I requested Beirut, and this is during their civil war. So Beirut was at that time the most dangerous posting in the Department of State in the world. We had 2 embassies blown up, we had the Marine barracks blowing up. While I was there, there was at least 11 kidnappings. When you arrived, they gave you a .357, they gave you a riot shotgun, and then you bought whatever else you wanted on the open market. So I had an AK-47, I had CZ-75s, as did everyone else. It was, they say that the people that went to Beirut were 2 types. People going for money because there was a lot, you got 50% higher pay, and cowboys. And so—
Which one were you?
I was, yeah, right. At least I still got $2 in my wallet.
We have 2 high schools in the community, and we've been trying to get a JROTC unit, but from the standpoint of the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, we didn't have the student body numbers to support a unit at either one of the schools. Now the Marine Corps allowed us to draw, because the schools are only about 7 miles apart, so the Marine Corps allowed us to draw the student body or count the numbers from the 2 high schools.
I'm a Colonel, United States Marine Corps retired, and I have been working with the Marine Corps Junior ROTC program here in Transylvania County since the school year of 2019-2020. Been a Marine my whole adult life. I spent 28 years on active duty, and when I retired from active duty in 2013, my family came here to Western North Carolina. And then once we got here and Transylvania County and Brevard started the Marine Corps Junior ROTC program, it was one of those things where you think to yourself all along, I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor for young Marines. We talk about leadership on a regular basis as Marine Corps officers, and I wanted to bring that to the high school kids.
Good afternoon. My name is Sergeant Major Rufnak. Good afternoon, Sergeant Major Rufnak. Please, your next exercise will be Marine Corps push-ups. Marine Corps push-ups for connects. That's all kind of cadence. You have the repetition. We will do 10 of these. Start positions. Move! Stop! And exercise in 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The sense of family that we have, that's the most important part to me. We do military attributes. We wear the uniform, we PT or physical training. We learn history about the military, but it's not, you must go into this. It's more like a structured way of being a citizen and how to be helpful in those ways. We do a lot of community service, and people don't see that from us, but we try and get ourselves out there. I've grown up in a military family. Both my parents came from the Army, and that's been from years past as well. Currently, I'm in the process of enlisting in the Army National Guard, and then my career is to follow up and go to UNC Charlotte by the fall of 2024. To honor something is to have respect. Even if you're not a part of it, it is something that we cherish, even as a nation. And I want to honor our veterans because to me, they mean something. My parents are veterans, so I want to honor my parents.
I heard about this deployment about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, and as the curator of the Veterans History Museum, and I've done many exhibits and had many functions for Vietnam vets, Korean War vets, World War II vets, but I never had an opportunity to do something for the younger soldiers. And this was the ideal opportunity to have something for them, a little going away gathering and dinner before they get deployed. And I know what that's, I know what that's like as a parent, because I remember my daughter deploying to Afghanistan at Fort Campbell, and it was a nice event. But at the end, I did cry when my daughter went off. I mean, they just loaded her up right there, and she was gone. And here we were just sitting there. My wife and I were just sitting there, looking at each other like, we might never see our kid again. Who knows?
First deployment. Honestly, when I first found out, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, I'm scared. But what's made it different is the soldiers. Like, we're like a family. Like, we haven't even left the States yet, but we already have such a good connection. So I feel excited. I really do.
I'm excited. I was very nervous at first. Being in the reserves, I never thought that I would get deployed, but the longer it, settled in, the more I liked it, spent more time on my new unit. I love it, and I'm ready to go see it. I can say, yeah, I'm going to the Middle East, so I'm excited. I'm ready to see how this deployment's gonna go.
My husband, my son, transitioning for my husband to go from single parent, from married to single parent, basically running the entire house, all on his own. He's a little hesitant, the first time, neither one of us knew what to expect, so it was my first deployment. And this time going around, we have some expectations of what's going to happen, which makes it easier and harder.
Being a caregiver for a veteran is hard. A caregiver for anybody is hard, but definitely for a veteran. And I learned a lot of, when he was in ICU and reverting back to, training, and, he felt like he was being attacked, and things like that you don't think about in caregiving for anybody else. But just as a caregiver, it's very lonely. There's not as many things out there for the caregiver, but I learned a lot from being in that role, not just as his caregiver, but things about being a caregiver, and the aspect that there's nothing to support them, and the burnout rate of caregivers is huge. because there is no support for them. Due to his disability, it had started off as just some mobility issues, cognitive issues, memory and things like that. But then as we, continued on with treatments and the tumor progressed, he ended up in a wheelchair. So it was navigating that world. A lot of this world is not ready for that. So, finding people that would park in front of the ramp and handicap rooms not being available.
When I joined the military, I had anticipated on serving 20 years, retiring. I had a whole career path and life had other plans. And when I was stationed in South Korea, I met my future spouse and we started a family. And it just made sense that, I would get out and be the caretaker of the children. Getting out of a law enforcement unit, going into being a military spouse, I was humbled. I will say this. I got out of the military and I was like, I know everything I need to know. I know about all the services. I know how to navigate this life, and man, was I wrong. Being on the military spouse side is wildly different from being active duty. And I had to learn, again, not being stubborn, I had to lean on my fellow military spouses for support. And the resources that are available were vastly different than what was available to me when I was an active duty soldier.
So my son was right around 16. 15, 16, he had was a freshman in high school. His first day of high school, we actually ended up in Duke in the ICU. So we missed his first week of school. I didn't plan to do this. But it was really hard on him. He unfortunately had to grow up a lot sooner than I was hoping. He had to help take care of his dad, just things that a 15, 16-year-old shouldn't have to do. Help him get in and out of a wheelchair, help with medication, help, things like that. There are times that, he had fallen and, you have to get a 16-year-old boy to help get his dad up off the floor. And it makes it very difficult for them to be a kid and be able to do things with their friends that, their friends don't get it, that they're different than what they were before. And then learning who you are again. After he passed, I realized that my whole life had revolved around taking care of him. And what did I enjoy again? That was really hard, and I'm still learning that, the things that I like to do.
It's overwhelming. That's a good way to put it when you've been in one culture for so long, for me 21 years, and you get, I guess, kind of institutionalized in one sense, but then you go to combat together and you experience things that nobody will ever experience over here. And so you can't really even explain it or explain yourself and really unpack what you're feeling inside. And so a lot of soldiers or a lot of service people, they feel overwhelmed, and then they make some very negative decisions. I am just now getting out of the service. December 1st, 2022 was my last day in the Army. And so right now what's happening with me is what happens with a lot of veterans is the VA gets a hold of you and wants all of your medical records, everything that ever happened to you or everything that's ever done when you've been in the service. And then they schedule for you a series of medical tests to see if any damage to your body or your mind has been a cause of, because of your service to our nation. And then they give you what's called a rating and decide whether or not the VA will compensate you. The process itself is very overwhelming. They told me before I got out of the Army, I worked on it for about 2 months, that I needed to find all of my medical records. They have some in the Army database, but then there's all the referrals you have to outside agencies, so you have to contact. And so what I have here is my 21 years of medical records. And out of all that, then they sort through it, and the VA then sends you via FedEx all these different medical appointments. This time I'm being sent down to Columbia, South Carolina for TBI, traumatic brain injury testing to see if I've had any kind of traumatic from all the percussion explosions. Ever since 2016, there was a lot of improvements made in the VA system, but now they're backlogged, and especially with service people that were in the Persian Gulf War, Vietnam vets, and even if you get back to Korea, they're going back over their records, trying to make sure that they're duly taken care of. And you can imagine that for me, after the system's improved as much as it is, it's overwhelming for me, but for somebody that's been out for a while, that's still been struggling, and then to find all this stuff is overwhelming in itself.
For me, it was an adjustment because I retired as a chief warrant officer in 2008. And it took a minute for me to adjust, because we were so accustomed to that environment. After 30 years of military service, you get up in the morning and you think in military, you go to bed at night, you think in military, everything you did, it was built into your network. Not only for me as a soldier, but also as a family person. Because my kids and my wife, over that period of time, they had become accustomed to military life in terms of how we operate and what we did. So it's truly a family affair.
I've lost a 20-year marriage, 6 kids with my ex-wife, never home. Most of my tours were 7 to 10 months long. So my oldest children, 18 years old now, 3/4 of their life is missed because I wanted to keep my country safe. And I'm proud of what I've done. I've not had no regrets.
I was in from 2000 to 2004. And I was in the military police corps. So every day I assumed major responsibilities for people and equipment. And when I got out, I felt lost. And so it was really difficult for me to really identify who I was as somebody post-service, what my identity was. It was really difficult to be able to connect with other people who hadn't served. And I felt lost. I didn't have a community, I didn't have a mission, and I didn't have an identity. And the one thing that really helped me was utilizing my benefits that I earned through the service, specifically my GI Bill. So I had both the Montgomery GI Bill and the post 9/11. And utilizing that benefit gave me a purpose of going back to school. It gave me a mission. Okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my bachelor's degree. And then while I did that, I was able to connect with community resources, both within the campus and off campus, to find my community again. I found student veterans and folks who understood where I was in my place.
I joined in 2001 and did 6 years in the Marine Corps. Then I got out, had a little bit of a break in service, went and did some college, and then I finished up the rest of my time in the Army. Did some deployments, saw some combat, and actually before I left for my retirement date, I went through an inpatient PTSD kind of facility out in Texas, Bandera, Texas, called Warrior's Heart, and that really allowed me to get the care and treatment that I needed, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, and definitely on the mental health aspect. And I was introduced to quite a few new techniques out there, EMDR and post-traumatic growth being two of the main that I really continue to use to this day. And so I'm a big advocate for, if we can't talk about it, we can't fix it. So let's get it all out there and give these men and women a better product.
It's job searching. I've been here for about 8 months, did a lot of PTSD work. I did a lot of work with Joe Hazel, which is our spiritual advisor, and he's also a substance abuse counselor. And so for the last 8 months, I've just kind of really been digging deep and trying to fix myself. And so now I'm back out on the job market.
After I retired during the beginning of the pandemic, and I was already struggling with mental disorders that I was self-medicating with alcohol use. And then during my transition, of course, COVID kicked off, and all the stay at home and all the things that were enforced caused my the transition classes that the Army offered to pretty much come to a screeching halt. So I didn't receive the benefit a lot of those classes give. It got really bad to the point where my vehicle got repossessed at first, and then I was able to hold on for a little bit longer financially, but I eventually got evicted from my apartment a couple months later, and then of course got evicted by law enforcement. I was suffering pretty bad from the alcohol addiction and suicidal ideation, so they brought me to detox. There was a brochure for the Veterans Life Center in the detox clinic, and I called here and I got an interview over the phone right away with the staff, and that led to me being admitted here right after I got out of detox. The 2 years that I was between retirement and getting here, I didn't do anything with the VA like I should have done. So I started getting established with the VA, quickly got diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and of course, substance abuse disorder, and went right into therapy for those. It took a little bit of time. It wasn't an immediate turnaround, but I just kept the faith and kept doing my appointments, and over time things have improved tremendously for me.
It was scary. It was horrifying. In fact, I cried a lot before I came up with an answer, because it's like, I have the power to do what I want. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Giving myself the space to think about what it is that I want to do was scary, but once I figured it out, the path, everything just opened up for me.
Access of Wilmington, the organization, does adapted sports and recreation for people with disabilities. We're basically eliminating barriers for people in our community. And after that organization was started, we realized that we needed to have a veteran-specific program. And so that program is Project SOAR. So we do adapted sports, recreation, and outreach with veterans in our community that have disabilities. The only criteria is they have to have a rated disability, but it doesn't have to be like a disability that makes them incapable of working. They could have, and veterans will understand what this means, they can have like 10% and just have cranky knees from too much road marching, all the way up to 100% disability, permanent and total, and unable to work. So we serve all of that. And those disabilities can include mobility disabilities, they can include mental and behavioral health disabilities, and most people have some combination. They come and they're sort of just blown away because they didn't know that this existed. And if they've lived someplace else, this doesn't really exist in other places. So when they find out that they can do all these different activities that they can experience, like yoga and kayaking and fishing and archery and scuba diving and all these things, and that they're like free of charge, that they're covered by our VA grant, and that they get to interact again sort of in this camaraderie with other veterans, I think most people are just excited to not feel like they're stuck, and they get to have that ability to be part of their community again, interact with other veterans again, be part of a team again. And you know, what we see is just people coming out of that isolation and just sort of getting to blossom back into themselves again.
I would come out here before everybody else, and I would just sit on the porch and drink my coffee. And it just is this peaceful place that you can be calm and not have to talk to anybody.
It's like there's been a dome of peace that was put over it. And so much of that goes to the people that come, because that's what they're seeking. They're not seeking conflict. They're not seeking anything but peace.
It's a calm place. It's a place where you don't have to speak. You don't have to tell your story, or you can if you want.
So when they get here, we're ready for wherever they're at. And oftentimes that turmoil continues, but that's okay. The Veterans Healing Farm, our main focus is working with veterans and their family members for trauma. And the point behind that is that while the veteran themselves has experienced what they've experienced, when they come back home to the family unit, it doesn't remain with them, it spreads. And so that's why we welcome veterans and their families here. We also welcome the veteran caregivers, and then a volunteer community who will come and just want to help. So what we do at the Veterans Healing Farm is we provide at the foundation a safe place, a peaceful place for veterans to come and their families and exist. So that's the foundation, just that. From there, we'll layer it up. We have programs in what we call agrotherapy. So we have it's an 8-acre farm here, and everything we grow, the veterans plant, maintain the soil, harvest. Everything we grow goes back to the veteran community. So we'll set up in front of the Charles George VA. We'll give our produce away there. We'll take it down to the homeless shelter in Asheville. We give it there, a veterans homeless shelter. We'll bring it back to Hendersonville. We'll give it to Safe Light. We'll give it to, which is a women's shelter. We'll give it to a rescue mission. We give our produce away because the point is not about how many heads of cabbage at the end of the season. It's the process that the veterans went through in growing that cabbage.
In February of last year, I found the Veterans Healing Farm, and I was in the process of planning my demise and Sky's, because we were homeless for 1.5 years. We slept in the back of a car, ate out of trash cans. So we all have a fall, but it doesn't matter what it is when our brothers and sisters, it doesn't matter what branch of service, we still stand with each other.
You'll be interviewing, if you haven't already, Emmett Cassiato, and he came into our community here with a dream, and his dream was a military museum. He had been a collector for a number of years and didn't have a place to display it. And we were talking and looking around, and we had old former administration building here for the county administration. It was right beside the courthouse, and it was empty at the time, and we were considering when we would tear it down, because it was starting to be a cost issue in that. And I took him in there one day and his eyes lit up and he saw what could be there and he had this vision.
That patch is the atomic bomb patch, okay? And James Brush, that's his uniform. He's a World War II veteran, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's about 98 years old now. But he comes in here, and we're like little kids in a candy store because we want to know because he met Oppenheimer, he met Groves out there. I mean, he knew these people out there, so we were really interested in his stories. You know, just thinking about that. Just having something like this, let them know that we care about what they're doing for us. The modern soldier today is not like the World War II guy. They leave secretly, they come back. You don't even know they're gone, and they come back. It's not like a ticker tape parade in World War II. You know, they don't get that. The Vietnam guys got harassed when they came home. It was horrible. And the Korean War vets, they came home one at a time, you know, get on a commercial flight, come home, and that was it. But being the curator of the museum, you know, I never served a day in my life, but that museum was what I wanted to do for those who did. And I think we succeeded in that. And we're just not a building with artifacts in it. Our tentacles are all over North and South Carolina helping veterans and making sure that their memories and their service is never forgotten.
A few years ago, our county commissioners identified the need for us to do better for our military community, and so they convened a task force that got diverse buy-in from different stakeholders within the community, including many veterans themselves. So they met for a year, and they came up with 15 recommendations for how to best support the military here in Wake County. Our Housing Affordability and Community Revitalization Department volunteered to take on the creation of a new division specifically to support veterans in this community. And so what we've done is this beautifully blended kind of team. We have two teams that make up this division. One, we have our county veteran service officers who are here to help answer questions about benefits and compensation and claims and all of that. Then we also have another team that focuses solely on ending veteran homelessness.
We found that our veterans' largest issue is housing, and we have got our homeless veterans down to the teens in Wake County. We were at about 135 when we started. We're literally down to the teens. And what we've done in our men's shelter, we have a separate area for veterans, and we give them intensive case management.
We have somebody that goes out into the community, goes out into the encampments in the tent cities, and goes and asks people, have you ever served in the armed forces? And we identify those veterans who are out on the street. We get them connected to emergency shelter. We get them connected to the necessary case management so that they can begin thriving and getting back on their feet.
You know, we had a guy in here the other day that we got, you know, like $80,000 back pay, and the mobility department for the VA is totally remodeling his house and making it handicap accessible. And I mean, you can just see the weight lifted off of his shoulders, and his wife, who's his primary caregiver. And everything that's wrong with him stems directly from Agent Orange. So, you know, whether he did one tour or 2 years or whatever he did, you know, I don't like to use the phrase, we owe it to him, but we owe it to him.
If you have a veteran that's looking to support veterans or organizations or whatever they're trying to do, you can simply go to any veteran organization. You can go to the VA hospital, VA, you can go online and just type in veteran support. You can go to church, you can go to Fort Bragg, you can go to almost any installation, and we're there to help. What I'm really upset about is that we have all these veterans that are being taken advantage of. They come to me, or when they finally get a chance to come in and talk to a veteran service officer, They have no idea that we were ever here. These other organizations that will promise veterans that they can help them receive 100% benefits if you will pay me, $250, $5,000. And this is a benefit that each veteran that has an honorable discharge, this is something that they've earned. So my thing is that I'm sick and tired of veterans being persuaded or influenced to come to different organizations, and you charge me $5,000, or I will charge you $5,000 to ensure you receive 100%. But the only one that can do that is the Veterans Service-Connected Conditions and the VA to make that decision. This is a benefit that they've earned. It's free. We don't charge no veteran organization, accredited veteran organization, DAV, American Legion, VFW, NAVVETS, whatever it may be. We do this because you earned this right.
The national statistics show that a veteran service officer over their career brings about $58 million worth of economic benefit to that county. Because I'm borrowed this from Secretary Gaskin. I've been working with him, and he's fabulous. I'm really glad we have him as our Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Is the VA is like a giant bank of services that our veterans can access, but there's no tellers. There's nobody to help them. And very few veterans get their full benefits on their own.
We have veteran service officers in 3 categories. They are the state veteran service officers, there are the county veteran service officers, and they are veteran service organizations, veteran service officers. All of them with the same mission, same goal.
So you need that advocate, and that's all a veteran service officer is an advocate to help them get the services that they've earned from the federal government. So when we started this, I kept telling county management, we're leaving money on the table. We're leaving a lot of money on the table. And the National VA actually publishes the dollar amount of benefits that go into each county. That's local economic benefit.
Even if we use the numbers that the VA give us of 698,000, most recent number, and I've heard going to 723, that ratio of veteran service officers to veterans is 1 to 4,700, meaning that we just do not have the numbers for which to do that. And let me break it down by how we broke it down. I have 28 state veteran service officers. The counties, 110 collectively. And that's not all counties having a veteran service officers. And there are about 6 to 8 veteran service officers within the big 6 we call the Veteran Service Organization, DAV, American Legions, and VFW, and VETS. Those organizations have a certified veteran service officer. We want every certified veteran service officer to be able to plug in and give these veterans in a timely basis. Not 2 years, not a reject because they went through va.gov and didn't fill in block 14, so they got a decline, but being able to explain to them how to do that. The connection is we have to do a better job of transitioning them out. When they come out of the service, they should realize they can meet someone. They know someone that in their area or county that they can check in with. But the misnomer and misassumption is that VA and DOD are connected. They are 2 separate agencies, and that's why we all say, back when I got out, we used to have to Xerox our medical records and take them over to VA. We've gotten better in automation, but the second part of that is now there should be automation with the states. There should be a seamless relationship between DOD, Homeland Security, in the case of the Coast Guards, VA, and the state.
A little bit goes a long way. if you're a county that doesn't have a lot of resources, to, add VSOs, get involved with your local nonprofit world and see if you could start bridging those gaps to veterans.
NC for me, North Carolina for Military Employment, was started as an economic development initiative for North Carolina. The #1 driver for economic development is talent, and we have the talent here in North Carolina, specifically military talent. We're the 3rd largest Department of Defense presence in the United States. We have over 20,000 transitioning service members at our bases across North Carolina, and most of those looking for meaningful careers. We certainly would like to keep some of those in North Carolina. The military is our 2nd largest industry in North Carolina. As a matter of fact, the active duty military supports over 653,000 jobs across our state. Definitely something that we want to focus on when we look at economic development. You look at the fact that we have a focus on our active duty military, and now with NC for me, a focus on our transitioning military and our veterans into meaningful careers in companies across our state. To me, that's a win-win for our state and certainly helps us drive our mission to be the most military-friendly state in this country. There's perception that all military talent is about wearing uniforms, driving tanks, and shooting guns. And the reality is 80% of what the individuals do in the military occupational specialty, transfers into civilian roles. We have people that do logistics and statistics and food service and public safety and public services. As a matter of fact, for local governments, that's a perfect employer target for us, for NC for me, because many of the jobs in local government are exactly those jobs in the military.
The vast majority of successful claims for every type of federal benefit is coming from county veteran services officers and veteran services officers at DAV, American Legion, stuff like that. So essentially people that deal with it every day.
If you're a veteran service officer and you saw 1,300 last year of veterans, how about multiply that by 5, because that's the average time that you actually see a veteran as you walk them through their process, their claim process. So what I like to be able to do is absolutely double the number that I have in the state to about 60 veteran service officers, and 1 per county funded by the state, in addition to what the county do based on their veterans' need, because you have some veteran densities in some areas that are higher than others. But you should not have to travel across 3 counties to find a veteran service officers. This is probably for a lot of them the first time that they would have been without a job, whether they stay 4 years or they stay 30. When they transition out, they need to be connected with someone of some state that understands that North Carolina offers those opportunities: jobs, housing, education, and quality of life.
I think what I want people to know, as a veteran myself, and I don't want to speak for other veterans, but what I want people to know as a veteran myself and one that has a disability or multiple disabilities is we're not broken. We have challenges just like anybody else. And when our friends and neighbors are able to accept us and not fear us and not pity us, that makes a huge difference on how we're able to transition back into the community.
I don't think we're any different than anybody else when it comes to, things like substance abuse or financial problems, family problems. But I feel like it's almost like a stigma for veterans that go through it, right? It's almost it feels almost expected, like, oh, you're a combat vet, you have PTSD, that's expected. You have a substance abuse problem, that's expected. And it shouldn't be any different than anybody else. But being in this realm, I can't help but notice it is a big problem amongst veterans with, PTSD, substance abuse, family issues, financial issues. And I still think we're trying to figure out why.
My heart goes out to spouses in the military. My wife is here today. She endured my deployments. Both of my sons followed in my footsteps as soon as they turned 18, and both of them joined the Army and the infantry. And both of them deployed, once to Afghanistan and once to Iraq. And so my wife endured all the men in her life, downrange and deployment. And she can tell stories of every time she saw a black or a white car driving up or driving by. She knew what that meant if it was for her.
We always want to make sure we bring everybody back home. And without making sure that we take care of each other, then that makes us feel like we still leave someone on the battlefield.
We all have different healing journeys. It's going to take a lot of different things to be able to help a veteran get through what they need to get through. All these veterans out here are not rabid animals that are going to attack you just because of what we've done and what we've seen, and that's not who we are, and we just need to be able to heal just like everybody else. We're out here and we need help.
I feel like us veterans, we are a part of the public, and yeah, that's just it. Like we're really, other than our career experiences, we're the same, and we just hope to be treated as the same, like human beings instead of the label veterans. Like it's almost a bad thing. We're humans too.
That's what it's like to be back and out of service. I'm proud. I'm a proud American. That's about all I can tell you.